Hey, what's up everybody? This is Chris with REM, and this is a continuation of the introduction into Blender. So in this video, we're actually going to cover the 3D viewer, or 3D viewport as I like to call it. So in the 3D viewport, we're first going to cover the header here. So just like our project header, each individual viewport has its own header options. So with this, here you have the editor type selection. You have the different modes of how to view your 3D scene. And this, all of this together is a 3D scene. So you can go into edit mode, which allows you to edit individual points of the scene, or edit individual faces of the scene, or edges of the scene. You can go into sculpt mode, kind of like we were talking about before, sculpting. You go into vertex paint mode, kind of like we were talking about before, the vertex paint. So essentially, these are the options that it toggles when you do this, when you click these tabs up here. So with the texture paint mode and all this stuff. So you can set this up yourself or just work in this environment and kind of click between these as you work instead of hitting these tabs. So again, you have the view, and this allows you to change the different ways you can view the scene. So you can do like let's say toggle it into quad view. So it'll hit you with all the orthographic views and have one perspective view here. And one of the things I do want you to notice how I did the toggle in the orthographic view. I went to view in area, toggle quad view, but if you notice, besides some of these options, not every option, besides some of these options, you'll see the keyboard shortcut to how to do that without going through these menus. And I'm emphasizing that because in a lot of videos you'll hear them say, oh, hit Q, hit I, hit all of these, hit W, hit, and that is really basically just a shortcut to the menu option of what they're telling you to do. So with that being said, I'm gonna toggle that quad view back off. But then I want to show you these other options. So usually they say hit T. We're gonna go ahead and hit toolbar here, and it'll show you your different options, just like Photoshop, where you can have selection, you can have your cursor option, you can have your move option tool, rotate, scale, transform, draw on the screen, your measuring tools. All your tools will usually be here. Your tools change again with every different viewer. Your tools will change. So you have to just pay attention to what viewer you're in, and then you'll get the different options. Even as you change from edit mode, your tools change. So you'll get even more tools when you go into edit mode. So this is where always your tools will be. And then go to view sidebar. Your sidebar is usually where all your additional information about what's inside the viewer, how you can manipulate that. So in this instance, this sidebar has the transform data for whatever I have selected. So if I select this, and I can change the location with the numbers here, rotation I can change with the numbers, or I can go to the toolbar here and do the same thing. So I'm left clicking to do all of this, by the way. So I can do the rotation here, I can do the scale here, scale by either grabbing the red, and you can just scale it on the x-axis, or grabbing the blue, you scale it on the z-axis, and you can see it changes the value as we scale in the scene. So and then also, this is one of the cool features that I noticed about Blender. It gives you the dimensions here. So as you scale, you might be scaling a percentage here, but then this actually gives you the length. So it's in the x-axis, this is 1.42 meters. That's actually very useful with architecture and other types of designs and stuff like that. So I'm gonna just leave that here. A rule of thumb. This is just a tidbit of information I've learned since using Blender. I always try my best to keep my scale, location, rotation, all of this stuff at 0. I mean, my location, rotation at 0, my scale at 1 for everything. When I go into edit mode, I can edit the object however I want. Then when I go back into object mode, or actually, let me scale it. I get edited however I want, but I go back into object mode, it's still scaled to 1. But the length or the measurement has changed. The main reason that you do this, because for animation purposes and things like that, it just makes life easier. Just trust me on this one. Just trust me. So let me just Z out of all this. Control Z out of all of this. Or you see undo here, edit, undo, just like Word document or anything else. Edit, undo, Control Z get you right out of here. All right, or undoes everything. All right, so we're just gonna continue along. So you can add objects here. So in the right after select, or I skipped this section. So we did views. So select. You can select all. You can select box select, and these are the same options you have here. Some of the same options you have here. So if you want to select this box, you can select it like that. You can also click and hold and have different selection options. When you see this little arrow here, you usually have more options. And if you're familiar with Photoshop, you kind of are familiar with that more options are usually under the arrow. So you have different selection options. You can select by type, so select by curved surfaces, blah blah blah. You go and pretty much do your homework on how you want to select. I typically just select by clicking it, because but don't get me wrong, there are instances where you might have to select by material or things like that, and by the time you get to that point, you'll kind of know where things are at. So add is where you go to pretty much add something to your 3D scene, or add something to your scene. Adding something to your scene being a mesh, curve, a surface, a metaball, text, grease pencil, armature, lattice. Armature is bones. Get into that later on. Lattice, empties, images, lights, cameras, speakers, force fields. I mean, it just goes on and on. Force fields being physics. So when you run a physics engine, you can apply your force fields. But all of this stuff you got to your scene. So what we're going to do is just simply select another mesh. Let's do the Blender monkey here, and go ahead and move him to the rotate him. He needs to rotate 180 degrees on the Z. And see, we added the monkey here. You know, so that's Blender. Another thing you see how when you toggle this, when you just push select and none of the gizmo pops up, you can simply just hit this one right here, and it has it where you can select things and move things where the arrows, or rotate them with the circles around the arrows, or scale them with the boxes. So that's that. So that's how you add objects or add anything to your scene. So then you have your object options. Every object has options that you can do to it, how you can edit it, how you can manipulate it, how you can change it. These are all your object options. So you have transform. This is to move the thing, move it, scale it, all of the shear it, all of this stuff. Set origin. This is your rotation point, so you can change where you set your rotation point. Mirror it. So if you essentially, if you model one eyeball and you just want to mirror it to the other side, it'll mirror for you. We don't have to do two. And mirroring is great because it'll be exact. It won't, modeling, just like drawing, you might have one eye that looks a little bigger than the other eye, but you can mirror it here. Fell out of the thing. So you can clear location information, apply location information, snap, and the list goes on and on. Again, do your homework about what you could do to these objects, or just about this list. And I guess I don't want to graze over it too fast. I'll give you the top things that I use in this list. So for an object here, one of the main things is being able to set the origin. So you want to definitely set the origin to geometry every time, so you'll be able to rotate around perfectly the center of the object. What else? Another one that I use a lot here. I apply location and rotation deltas. I apply all transform deltas sometimes. But this is essentially like, so let's say I did scale the scene up high. We were talking before. I scaled this monkey up, and I'm like, oh, this is the perfect size. Instead of having to do it in edit mode, so I'm like, this is the perfect size. His location is here. His rotation is here, and all of it's not at default, but I want to set it to default. Essentially, you just hit apply, all transforms to delta, zeroed out, scaled to 1, back to normal. That's one of the main things I use for the object. Join. So if I want to take this object, shift select, left click the other object, join or control J, and now both of these objects are one object. You see, it's rotate with it, just like that. I'm gonna go ahead and back out of that. What else do I use in this? Smooth shading is definitely a big one. It's major. Smooth shading. Make this monkey a little smoother. Look at that. Just by hitting a button, you get back to flat shading. This gives you the true geometry or your true locations of all of your points. But when you hit smooth shading, it gives you an averaged location of all your points. It averages what they call your normals or your edges, however the math works. That's getting real technical. I mean, you can do so much. You can insert your keyframes here. You can do all of this stuff, and I would just say learn it. Another thing though, to quickly get to some of these options, not all of them, but some of the options, most of the options you'll need, if you already have the object selected, just go ahead and right click, and you can set the origin and do all of this stuff by just right clicking. Just like I said before, with any other thing that you want to learn about, or you want more options on, just right click it, and it might have a surprise for you. So just go ahead and right click the object you want. Let's say I want to duplicate this object. Boom. I duplicated it, sent it right over there. Now we got two objects, and I didn't have to go back and add a mesh monkey, because what if I change this? Anyway, I tend to go further into it, and I'm trying to keep this very short. So let's continue. So you can, with the rotation, you can change your transform orientation, or better yet, let's just continue this transform manipulation in the next video. So we're going to go ahead and continue in the next video. But again, this is a good video to start off, at least creating your objects. In the first set of options here, where you can be able to view, you have your view options, you have your select options, how you select. You have all your add options, so how you add things to the scene. They all live here. Your object manipulation information, which again, very important. All these things change in the different settings that you're in, so you have to remember that. So when you're in edit mode, you have a whole new set of options just for vertices, edges have their own options, faces have their own options, UVs have their own options, and each time you change into a different mode, it has its own set of options. So you have to be mindful. This is where that lives, and that's what the purpose of this video is for. so you'll know this is where those edit options or manipulators live. I'm trying to not say manipulators because there are modifiers, and then you might get confused with modifiers and manipulators, but these are where they live. So again, this is the header, the beginning of the header lesson, and we're going to go ahead and go to the next video and cover how to, or the transform section, or the middle section of the header bar here. So see you in the next video. Later. Peace.